if the future is impossible to predict, which I think we can agree is true, and the talent shortage isn't going anywhere, how do we build teams that thrive in the future of work?
Our next speaker, Termuende, is a globally recognized keynote speaker that has been on literally hundreds of stages and worked with category-leading companies from all over the world. His best-selling book, Rethink Work, has been a go-to resource as we collectively navigate the future of work. And as a co-founder of Now of Work, Eric spends his time studying incredible leaders and is here today to share what separates those that thrive in the future of work with those that simply don't make it.
What I've got for you is what 10 years of research shows allows us to be incredible leaders and build incredible teams. It's almost like a bit of a playbook, a blueprint to leading in that new world of work. And truthfully, it's as simple as coming down to three things. We need to, as Yasmin said, build a deep sense of trust. We have to be able to isolate and remove friction. And finally, we have to be able to create this culture of experimentation. It's those three things, that simple. Now, a lot of us intuitively know the importance of trust. We know what good trusting relationships feels like. The problem, though, is that very rarely do we understand how to build trust. What's the system? What's the operations? What's the framework to be able to build trust across our teams? His name's Kevin Stefanski. He's in the orange tie. A few years ago, he was awarded a bit of a promotion, okay? He was promoted to be the head coach of the Cleveland Browns football team. And the way I see it, Stefanski had 3 strikes against him, okay? The first strike is that when he was assigned to be the head coach, he had never been a head coach before. He was a rookie head coach, a pioneer, a trailblazer in his own right. The second strike, for those of you that know, is indeed the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are horrible, like really bad. Like 9 of the last 10 years, they were dead last in their division, okay? In 2017, they didn't even win a single game. And when they finally won a game in 2018, the city threw them a parade. I don't know if they're mocking them or celebrating them at this point, but they're not a good team, okay? Now, the third strike against Stefanski is that he was promoted to be the head coach in the first wave of the pandemic. So not only could he not bring his team together to work on drills and fundamentals in place, he couldn't even have them in the same room. So he got 55 grown macho football players onto Zoom or onto Teams, and he said, fellas, I need you to know who I am, and I'm really hoping I can get to know who you are too. So I've come up with this drill. I call it the 4H drill. And by the way, we can use this across your teams too. You can modify it, you can tailor it, you can do whatever you want to get to know your team a little bit better. But what he said, I want to share with you my heroes, my heartbreaks, my hopes, and my history. Now you might think that his heroes are legendary coaches in the NFL. No, his heroes were his parents. And he shared with his team all the things that his parents sacrificed to give him the opportunities, to give him the life that he is able to live today. He then shared one of his heartbreaks. And he shared how in high school, somebody just shattered his heart. I think we all know what that feels like, how it just shattered his heart, and how he just angrily walked into football and gave him that grit, that resilience, that tenacity, that distraction, which then changed the course of his life, which also led him to the wife and the 3 kids that he has today. He said that heartbreak was the best thing that ever happened to me. And as he shared these things, you could almost see the defense, the invisible defense sort of like just sort of lower. The walls start to come down. Now Stefanski, he knew that a psychologically safe organization is one where people can feel that openness to share without being judged, without being ridiculed, without being reprimanded, well, just feeling truly safe. Now, one by one, you could see the roots of this team grow into the ground, the foundation become rock solid, to the point where people started to empathize and share and comment on each other's stories that Stefanski said, no, stop. I can't hear what anyone's saying. You're all talking over each other too much. This was working too well. So after practices and after games for the next 3 weeks, each player, those who were interested and willing to and excited to share, would get to share some of their 4 H's. And as time went on, those weeks turned into months, the cohesion and the collaboration on this team became very strong, something that Cleveland hadn't seen in decades. To the point where the Cleveland Browns team that took the field that September ended up being 11-6 that year. They had a winning record. But not only did they have a winning record, they made it to the playoffs for the first time in 17 years. Even better, they won that playoff game. They won a playoff game for the first time in 28 years. Wow. And as he went to the press conference that night after their final game, after their final loss in the playoffs, every one of the journalists wanted to ask him the same question. They said, Stefanski, what was your secret? How did you turn that team around in such a short period of time? What he said really stuck with me. I'm hoping it sticks with you too. He said, when my team trusts each other off the field, they play better together on the field. I want you to think about that for a second. When my team trusts each other off the field, they play better together on the field. I think we should shift from checking on to checking in, where instead of top down, we're now like eye to eye, heart to heart, asking the most simple, the most basic, the most human-centric questions. Like, how are you? What did you learn this week? What can we improve on? What mistakes did you make? Just because we can't predict the future doesn't mean that we can't build a resilient team that's able to thrive in it. I'm going to stop there and say thank you so much for your time today.